Well, it's been a little while since we checked in with the State Representative Tacky Chan of Quincy for a Tacky Talk. How are you, Tacky?
Doing good, Joe. Happy post July 4th.
The same to you. A nice, wet, cold one. It was kind of like Memorial Day revisited all over again.
Absolutely. All this means to us at home somewhat is there's less big crowds in places, especially along Walson Beach, which was my concern regarding Memorial Day weekend. And given the very cool weekend, it prevented overcrowding in public places like Walson Beach and high traffic on places like Queen and Shore Drive. I am aware that Thursday and Friday a lot of people moving around, even Saturday during the rainstorm. But I mean, it wasn't this kind of like wall-to-wall situation, which created a lot of public safety hazards this wet weekend. So on the drawback, I'm sorry that we all had a degree of rain out. On the good front, we didn't have overwhelming public safety problems at the same time due to overcrowding and traffic issues.
Yeah. Did you go to any of the like the Squantum or the Marymount Fourth of July events?
Yeah, we did some events this Sunday. Adam Shore does their very brief celebration and scholarship award recipients, and congratulations to the high school kids going to college this year and getting their scholarships from the Adam Shore Association. And we walked the rotary with the kids around us, and we went down to Germantown that has their small neighborhood parade, down Shed Street. It was fun to see kids playing, to be honest with you. I actually spent more time, watching the kids having fun than actually politicking, to be frank. And the Marymount Parade was very good, all things considered. A lot of the stuff wasn't planned until about 3 or so weeks before July 4th.
Right.
So, we get just like having not too many people, in public places like the beach. People were definitely away this weekend. It was, Triple Ace was the highest travel weekend in a very long time. And, there was not that many people on the parade route, but it was good enough folks that say hello. So those who were home in the Marymount neighborhood, it was great to see everybody at some level. I was the one wearing the raincoat in case you were wondering who it was, because I was definitely afraid of getting drenched on. My other colleagues weren't nearly as concerned as I was. But, prepare for weather. And it's been 2 years seeing some of these folks.
Yeah.
I think that's something I think people, is realizing now more so than ever, exactly how long you actually haven't seen people that live less than a quarter mile from you.
Yeah, it's so true. And when you talk about kids, I mean, for adults, yes, it's been a hard year and a half, but it's been a very small portion of our total lives. For a 5-year-old, it's been, half their life almost.
Oh, absolutely. And, lost opportunity for socialization, lost opportunity to spend time with family. And, with, COVID and everything else, I mean, those little moments become so much more valuable as everything's been put in more perspective of what's really important. And kids, you're right, little kids, this time period of socialization is very important. And obviously, I don't have kids, but I mean, my friends with children, I mean, the challenges of homeschooling, the challenges of work-life balance, can be, it absolutely was difficult for everybody.
Yeah. What do you think about, I know some private organizations, businesses, airlines are requiring, vaccinations in order to utilize their services. Is that something that's going to face a legal challenge, do you think?
Oh, yes, it's definitely facing legal challenges. There was a hospital, I believe, in Texas that did this, and the federal court upheld it. Now, it's still a bit of a ways to Supreme Court, but I do expect that civil liberties issue will be brought up, straight to Supreme Court regarding how intrusive can government be regarding your life on healthcare. It would be an interesting argument, particularly with the rulings on American care, universal health care, the Obamacare stuff, the recent rulings on keeping that around. And there's other rulings coming up on, how much intrusion government have in your life. And it's a very mixed bag court. If you look at other cases that is non-taxes, non-abortion issues, non-civil rights issues, non-religious freedom issues, it actually is a mixed court regarding what you get. So I think healthcare is definitely one of those areas you might have a mixed result in the Supreme Court. It's pretty interesting. People tend to hyper focus on like 3 or 4 issues with them.
Yeah.
But you really have to look at the news about all the other rulings and how interesting it is regarding how it's not always ideologically political.
Plus, the vaccines people forget are just emergency use authorized right now. They're not fully authorized, so I guess there's that argument there too.
But that's exactly it. And new science, obviously freaks people out because they don't understand new science. They might even understand the old science, but the old science has been going on for like 40 years of no major problems. There's at least a trust of no new issues. And, the mRNA vaccine, is what people don't understand what does mRNA stand for to begin
Right.
with.
Yeah.
The messenger RNA and what it means. And I remind folks, this ain't new. This has been research and technology for 50 years. The problem is technology hadn't caught up with the research. So now we have technology that can meet the research, and it's been unrolled. And, again, all it does is mRNA does what conventional vaccines have done in the past, is just to teach your body to look for danger and respond appropriately when danger shows up. And the question is, how long does your body remember what the danger looks like?
Right. And now with these new variants, does that vaccine recognize the danger?
And that's the studies going on now. I mean, this sounds strange, but you have the world largest test subject globally at the moment, where you got 2 billion people with at least one shot in them and counting, and well into 67% of the U.S. population at least one shot. And in Massachusetts, you have about 70% fully vaccinated people. So we are now the test case on the largest scale ever.
Yeah.
On emergency use. And the Israelis have reported that only 63% efficacy on the Pfizer vaccine versus Delta, but still no hospitalizations and no death. People just weren't feeling good.
Right.
I'd rather have a few days uncomfortable and maybe having to stay in bed for a day versus find myself on a ventilator or even worse. The news continues to put stories out of people who weren't vaccinated and got infected.
Yes.
A huge negative outcome. And right now the CDC believes, based on data so far, and there's more data coming in, that all hospitalizations and deaths, are non-vaccinated, and a large chunk of these folks are now becoming the Delta variant folks. The reality about it is right now, I mean, Malaysia. I mentioned Malaysia had shut down the country for 2 weeks. Sydney, Australia, shut down the host city. Indonesia has an oxygen problem. You guys may have seen in the news that India couldn't get oxygen. Well, Indonesia now can't get oxygen, not just because of oxygen manufacturing, but also lack of tanks.
Oh, really?
Oxygen tanks. So other first world countries, in the region are trying to help out, particularly Singapore, because they're a wealthy country trying to get emergency oxygen tanks.
Yeah.
To Indonesia. And I expect people and as well as the U.S. government is probably going to make a donation of oxygen tanks overseas that are a surplus here. So I mean, this Delta variant is very serious. 90% of all new cases in the UK that test positive is a Delta variant.
Yeah, it's extremely transmissible, as I understand, much more so than the B1, as I guess it was called.
Absolutely. I don't have the number for that one yet because I just do the extrapolation on the number, but I don't. It's more infectious. I think it's so infectious so rapidly. I don't think the immunologists have been able to pin down, what the transmission rate per person is. It's just so rapid and so new. It doesn't kill you faster. It gets to you faster.
Right.
We know this is an asymptomatic disease because you can still carry disease with you despite having no symptoms. And if Delta is much more contagious and you have a lot of asymptomatic carriers, that just makes it insane.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of little time bombs waiting to go off. So it just makes vaccination all that much more important.
Well, look at Missouri City, Texas. I mean, that was on ABC News, and they have a massive overrun in the hospitals now because of lack of vaccinations. You look at anything south of Maryland, you're going to find very low vaccination rates, and there's pockets of COVID associated with it. And What's scary is that some states either not reporting data to the CDC or they're reducing the testing sites. Under some false belief that less testing is not about politics and numbers, is because people getting vaccinated becomes less crucial.
Mm.
Shouldn't wait to get to hospitalization testing. Until you get your vaccination rate very, very high, high amounts of testing is still very important.
Yeah, and like you say, travel is at an all-time high. So we, even here in the Northeast, where the vaccination rates are high, could be impacted.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I still believe what's going to happen is going to be pockets of super spreaders, so to speak. We have not a high vaccination rate, not high enough, or just wrong people, wrong place, wrong time situation. Just dumb luck of coincidence. You have unvaccinated people and you have like asymptomatic carriers just happening in the same place together.
Mm-hmm.
And we might do in the situation where we have to do a protocol like we do with measles. And anybody gets measles, I mean, the whole EPH and those guys come running over there to try to contain it. We may be needing to do that down the road as part of our new normal.
Yeah.
Australia is really the good test case for Delta because they're on the other side of the hemisphere. So, I'm sorry, no, on the bottom of the world, not really hemisphere, but the other side. They're in wintertime.
Right. Yes.
So this will hopefully give us some clues about what winter may be up here once we get to months of November, since they're in the midst of winter now, and how Delta is completely out of control. So you can't say, oh, well, we don't know what to get here. Well, we do, because the nature of this virus is so global in so many different environmental patterns that, we can get some hints, so to speak, of what may happen to us.
Can we change focus a little bit, Jackie, and look at some state issues? What's happening on the Hill this week?
Oh, you mean my day job?
Yeah, that, something you've been doing for a little while, so you have a little bit of experience with it.
It's been a little while.
Yeah.
It's still kind of funny. I'm still the most junior part of the state delegation, and actually one of the least amount of elected time.
Really?
Yeah, because John Keenan was on the city council for 2 years, right? So
Okay.
Actually, I'm the one, even though I've been in government my entire life on Beacon Hill, and as I tell stories, I've seen a lot and heard a lot, and do have some ideas about how things work. It's also always very amusing that I'm still the junior member, despite being doing this for over a decade.
Right. Yeah. Oh, so good for you. You're the new kid on the block.
Yeah, I'm always a new kid on the block for now. So I don't know what's going to happen if I ever become a senior member. If I ever last long enough to become a senior member.
But lots going on. I know everything from budget talks to federal pandemic relief to mail-in voting to tax break holidays for 2 months. There's tons.
There's tons. So let's tackle the last one first. So
Okay.
We'll tie that together with the budget. So the governor talked about doing a 2-month sales tax holiday. But there's some interesting crinkles I don't think the media really covered on that. First, the sales tax holiday has been designated by us for August 13th to 14th. I'll be repeating this again in future podcasts to remind folks that we do have a sales tax holiday. The average revenue loss for those 2 days combined is approximately $25 to $30 million, depending on a lot of factors, obviously, right? And I don't have to explain to you all how it works because I'm fairly confident everyone's partaked of a sales tax holiday at some point in the past.
That's when everybody buys big screen TVs, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to explain this to you. I think people really have figured out how this works because the rules hasn't changed in 15 years.
Yeah, it's most things $2,500 and under are tax-free.
Pretty much, and certain exemptions like cars, right?
Right.
So, like I said, people have practiced at one point. But regardless, you've extrapolated out, 2 months, August and September. You have 61 days. We lose about 25 to 30 million on the weekend. So let's be conservative and say it's $12.5 million lost in a single day on average. 61 days times 20, 12.5 million, puts you well into the $500 million zone.
Okay.
So that's significant. So why I say that's significant is because it's in the FY22 budget. So the governor points to the surplus. Well, the surplus is the FY21 budget. And like any business, we have to keep our books balance inside the fiscal year we're in. So we could carry money over, but you can't carry it over right away. You have to balance the budget based on what you have now. So an FY22 budget, when it does come out, I know we're already starting a new fiscal year, but we're hoping to see it in the next couple of weeks. Will reflect the fact that there's a $25 to $30 million loss in sales tax revenue from 2 states. But if you want to do a 2-month sales tax holiday, we will have to change the FY21 budget revenue projections to be short that half or so $1 billion, perhaps. I know exactly the number would be. I mean, no one's giving me a projection, but let's just pick a number for the sake of this argument, this example, that whatever that revenue loss has to be built into the FY22 budget.
Okay, all right.
So, it's not like you're moving money from, one pocket to another pocket like you do at home. We do follow a fiscal year like private sector does. And we have to keep our budgets within those fiscal years like the private sector. So, and the governor's giving the impression you can just kind of move money around like you move money from one pocket to another pocket at home. It doesn't work that way. Accounting is based on the books in the fiscal year we're in.
How is he proposing to pay for it?
He doesn't have to. That's the great thing about the governor's press releases. He doesn't have to give you details.
Okay.
Right?
Here's what I want to do. You people make it happen.
Pretty much. So welcome to details, folks. What I deal a lot in.
Yeah.
I don't deal with great ideas. I deal with details. So what does that mean? Well, as you guys see in the news, FY21, which is the fiscal year we just closed and still kind of in, as we try to get the budget done for FY22, shows a surplus of about $3.9 billion in counting.
Okay.
We probably have to find out counting in a few weeks because all the tax returns for FY21 will be in, minus the late returns, people filing their taxes in October.
Yep.
So there are a number of folks that ask for an extension to October. So we have not factored in those numbers yet.
Okay.
We get a real number in October. And but there's some things that the news doesn't talk about. So, for example, the FY21 budget was balanced on $1.55 billion in rainy day money, the stabilization fund. So the prudent thing to do, which I hope Ways and Means will do, is to take part of that $3.9 billion surplus and put back $1.55 billion.
Yep. Balance that budget, right?
Balance that budget, balance the stabilization fund, put the money back that we borrowed from stabilization. So, and wait for another rainy day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not $3.9 billion anymore. But then there's also the law requires that any capital gains taxes over $1.312 billion has to go to rainy day fund also, unless we suspend the law. So anything above the 1.3. And right now the projection is over 60% of this surplus revenue is capital gains.
Oh, okay.
And I expected that percentage of the surplus will be more capital gains. As those of you who look at your 401k or you have a private stock portfolio, seen that the market's gone gangbusters last year.
Yep.
Which, frankly, I'm also very surprised by. I expected it to be pandemic impacted longer. Right. But the Dow Jones and other S&P and others had migrated out manufacturing companies in exchange for high tech, which has done very well during the pandemic.
Yes, given the way we're communicating right now.
Absolutely. This right here is Zoom is stocks are very good. So
Yep.
There's been a lot of shifting around in mutual funds and indexes to try to stabilize people's mutual funds, 401ks, private investments to withstand the pandemic impact on the economy. So, people selling homes, huge too. I mean, a lot of home transactions, particularly in the last 6 months, also contributes to capital gains. So capital gains, as you can tell, is extremely fickle. I mean, depending on the real estate market, which then reflects in the banking industry, as well as the stock market, which is also very fickle. So that's why a lot of our capital gains goes to rainy day funds. So anything over $1.3 goes to rainy day. So, I mean, you will have a substantial surplus FY21? Absolutely. It's shocking to me that we have a surplus in FY21. So, I mean, but it won't be $4 billion worth.
Okay.
It would be closer to maybe $1.5 billion to $1.10 billion. Oh, I'm sorry, $1.10 billion, probably $1.9 billion, $2 billion, somewhere in that zone after we put money in the rainy day fund, after we pay back money to stabilization fund, any other debts we're trying to pay off in advance, or any other loans, short-term loans we had to do to get through COVID.
Yep.
The surplus is going to address that. On the interesting front, FY21, because of capital gains, is actually going to have a larger revenue generation than we did pre-pandemic.
Really?
Yeah, that was shocking when I started doing the math. So we actually going to exceed FY21 real numbers, real cash received numbers, more than we did in FY19.
Wow. Is that a result of the stimulus checks, do you think?
Yeah. Stimulus checks. Well, stimulus checks, by the way, are not taxed. But
Okay.
I mean, the money going into the economy
Right.
from stimulus checks is very apparent. Plus,
Yep.
strength of capital gains, and people get taxed on unemployment. But even then, we exempted a portion of unemployment benefits from taxation the same way the federal government did. So it wasn't like we're getting new revenue from there. And the unemployment rate in Massachusetts is about 6.8-ish.
Okay.
In that zone. Quincy is sitting about 6.9 or 7, depending on whose map you look at. Right now we're still slightly higher. Normally we're slightly lower in a good economy, which tells me gig workers are still not getting back to their jobs yet. And I still do know and do understand that people with unemployment expanded benefits are still not going back to work, but there's a portion of that population that's decided career change.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
And employers, for the first time in a very long time, find themselves in a seller's market. They need to figure out how they're going to change their pay scheme to bring people to work. People listening, whether you're a business owner or a person on unemployment or a person seeking a job, understand what I'm talking about. It's been a long time since we've had a competitive employee salary market,
Yes.
where employers need to create incentives for people to work for them. I want to tell you, last time I remember seeing this was back in the late 90s.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And
the
it seems like
workers have the upper hand basically right now. Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone's like shocked. I'm like, well, it's called capitalism, folks. I have no problem with this. People need to figure out what the pay structure makes sense to attract the best talent for you. And
Yeah.
competitive.
Hopefully the saying rising tide, lifts everybody up will hold true here.
No, I hope so too. And I do understand not all sectors are doing great. I mean,
Right.
The higher unemployment rate reflects that. The fact that we're being driven large by capital gains and the surplus reflects that. So we're far from the 2.9% unemployment rate pre-pandemic.
Right.
But I mean, as things recover and we get to the fall, the students look like they're going to be coming back. We might get some more tourism coming back into the fall. Leaf peeping is the next big so-called holiday.
Yeah.
Foreign visitors, out-of-state visitors, or foreign country visitors is leaf peeping. And we still got the Delta variant still a wild card about how that works. So, there's still a lot of factors involved about what may happen, but we're slowly but steadily getting there. So that's a combination of conversation on sales tax and worrying the budget and surplus and the potential future of economic growth regarding tourism and hospitality sector coming into Labor Day weekend and maybe into leaf peeping season. So, like I said, stay tuned. I'm saying I'm not predicting anything. I'm just saying that these are next indicators for us to see, revenue that isn't being circulated by literally us inside the state itself. And when the expanded unemployment benefits stop in September, I don't expect to see an extension of that. We'll see how the market, the market we live in, responds to that. So, I mean, there's always that inflation question, which in the U.S. doesn't mean printing more money. It's when the cost of doing business and the cost of living exceeds way, way too fast compared to the cost of salaries.
Right.
Which again creates an interesting factor because it's an employee market for salary right now and
Yes.
pay. So if you want to try to curb inflation, you may have to pay people more. So the gap between cost of living and cost of doing business shrinks between the two to try to slow down inflation.
Yeah, although I can see that getting into a catch-22 situation where one goes up, the other goes up, kind of like a whack-a-mole.
That's historically how it's been,
Yeah.
always. Right? One goes up, the other one goes up. But this is, yeah, I know it's like whack-a-mole. But this right now, it's very unusual time period. Like I said, I don't remember the last time seeing this
Yeah.
since the 2000s. So yeah, I mean, we're going to see how it plays out. Maybe the market and local businesses and employees, this solves itself over time.
Yep.
Or do we have to change our spending habits pursuant to the Fed's moving interest rates around to try to keep inflation from happening? People always have this perception of inflation like, printing so much money that it screws up the value of the dollar. That's not how it works in the U.S. It's not inflationary by overprinting money. It's inflationary by the gap between the cost of living. And we always talk about the wage gap between very high and very low.
Yep.
Obviously, I don't worry about the very high because they can meet the cost of inflation.
Right.
It's the massive amount of people on the other end. The inflation has a much higher negative effect on. And if salaries don't move with inflation, the gap grows, the gap grows. The cost of living grows, and you got inflation that people can't keep up with. So we'll see how it goes. And I do know we live in a high cost of living region on the east side of Massachusetts. I know Central Mass and Western Mass and the Berkshires, have different costs of living. But in Quincy, Quincy's the eastern part of the state, and cost of living here isn't cheap.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. What's happening with the pandemic relief money on the state?
Well, we've had some conversations. Chair Danielle Gregoire, who the chair of State Administration Regulatory Oversight, was asked by the speaker to talk to members about capital improvement priorities in their districts. So, I do have a few priorities going on that I put a request in. So,
do tell, Tacky.
Do tell. When I ask for it, if I get it, well, that's a different issue. People.
I understand.
But we can see what comes up. So obviously we have the C Street improvement project from Palmer to Queen Shore Drive.
Yep.
So, if I get cash for that, they'll accelerate the time frame as opposed to waiting for the bond to come up on the tip. Transportation infrastructure proposals.
Yep.
So, seawalls are obviously a continued concern since the major storms 3 or so years back. Turns out that everybody on the coastline is asking for seawalls. Obviously, we're not made of money. The pandemic is not going to be able to build the entire coastlines with the seawalls. But I mean, if we get any share of that money, that'll be helpful. It doesn't matter the size of the share. And I have been asked multiple times regarding the dredging projects down on Quincy Bay.
Yes. Yeah.
For those of you guys who spend time on the water, know that the bay is very shallow, and it's a lot of reasons, including the fact that Walsen Beach is not a natural beach; it's an artificial beach because we move this beach. So the channel's overdue for dredging. I think it was last dredged in the late '90s, also, and if we can get some pandemic money as part of the infrastructure project, it does a couple of things. It keeps a public safety channel open on Walsen Beach. It obviously for boating and recreation, you have a channel to get through regardless of tide. And interestingly enough, it actually helps flush out the beach because right now the beach is so shallow in terms of the bay, it doesn't move water fast enough out. So a channel will help flush the beach a bit.
Yeah, it's kind of like a big soup bowl. It's a shallow soup bowl, yeah.
Yeah, if you look in the Google map or look at the overhead, you're absolutely correct because you look around the beach, it is a soup bowl. Narrow, it looks big, but it really isn't that big.
Right.
Opening out to the rest of the Boston Harbor area. If we can get that done, I mean, they'll be good for another 20 years.
Okay.
So we get cash for that, we can accelerate that project. So, talking to Bruce Ayers and John Keenan, try to coordinate some of these projects together and see how much pandemic money. It's still a 3-year disbursement.
Yep.
So, they don't have to, they're actually not supposed to do a 1-year dump of money. It's over the course of multiple years.
Yep.
The feds want to see a plan, by the way. Unlike the municipal governments, just saying, we actually have to produce a real plan, and there is a clawback provision on some of this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if we don't follow the plan pursuant to federal guidelines, the feds claw back money. We don't want them clawing back money.
Gotcha.
So, maybe I won't get some of these projects because it doesn't meet the federal guidelines. But under no circumstances, the state wants the feds to take any of this back.
Yeah.
So we're going to be extremely cautious about this. Our colleague, Representative Dan Hunt, chairs, a lot of this was the federal, what it's called. It's like Federal Assistance and Census Committee, whatever that is. I mean, they're basically been looking closely at pandemic money,
Right. Yep.
as well as our colleague, Bill Driscoll, not Joe Driscoll. Joe Driscoll's no longer a rep. Bill Driscoll out of Milton oversees the COVID-19 committee. So both of them are still really doing oversight investigations regarding not just this federal pandemic money that we've gotten, but also past pandemic money, as well as the response and things that we can be doing better. Lord forbid we find ourselves in another similar situation down the road.
Yeah. So is it in committee right now?
The governor signed a bill to put that money into a special trust fund.
Okay.
So it's held in the trust fund outside the budget as a lump sum, and we'll see where it goes. The governor could have vetoed that or amended it and vetoed it, but practically speaking, the override was going to happen in both branches anyway. So there was no reason to prolong the pain.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah. So he kind of capitulated from his earlier stance. It sounds like.
Yeah, it's impractical to try to drag this out.
Yeah. Well, it just hurts people that need it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it slows down our ability to put a planning process together.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's good news. That's progress. That's a step.
Yeah, there's a practicality to this business.
More pressing is the whole issue of are folks going to still be able to mail in their ballots, Jackie?
Oh yeah, we've seen Secretary Galvin on the news, and I understand there's a lot of pressure on the local level. I get that, and it's trapped in the supplemental budget between the House and the Senate. The Senate wants to make it permanent, and the House wants to extend it to the end of the year. I'm hoping to come to some compromise relatively soon on this matter because we need to get these ballots printed and the municipalities prepared for the preliminaries this fall.
Yep.
I think everybody agrees that our cities and towns clerks, as well as Secretary of State, did a phenomenal job last year in the height of COVID on mailing ballots. There is practically no fraud, no identity problems. I do understand there was some confusion about how to mail in ballots. I do understand there was some small errors about communication of how this works, which the city and town clerks did a good job correcting and communicating properly, the right way you're supposed to fill out these forms.
Yep.
And the right way of filling out the ballot and sign your name to the back, and there's a double seal. It's put into envelopes and etc. I mean, the clerks have done a really good job in that communication when people call up with questions. And if you have a question about voting, where you vote, how to vote, whatever, do not hesitate to call the city clerk's offices, right? Or the town clerks if you're listening. So, we have a lot of confidence in our municipal officials to make this work. So hopefully we're able to do mail-in ballots, at least get through this preliminary election and look at the larger question about making this permanent going forward. But either way, something needs to happen to get through these municipal elections, and we can discuss further going to 2022 how we're going to manage this. I understand one of the sticking points is paying for it. It becomes an unfettered mandate. Last year, the state put up money to pay for these ballots. This time, municipality is going to need to. I have not looked at the city budget. I do not have the city budget. I don't know if the city budget included a provision for mail-in ballots. I can't tell you, but we also got pandemic money. So, $75 million plus a potential $16 million Norfolk County money that Norfolk County may just give to the city. So, $344 million budget. You get 45 plus 16 million. Just saying, folks.
Should be able to afford it. Yeah.
I'm pretty confident the city can figure out how to afford for mail-in ballot campaign this election cycle. I do not want to hear about crying poor this year. This is the 1 year I don't want to hear from municipalities saying we're poor. That's all Fed money. So I have no control of how that works anyway. On the CRINCO, the lotteries actually also exceeded projections. And actually gets an interesting question on that front as well. All that surplus I talked about.
Yep.
How much of that goes back to city and towns and additional local aid? When we had surpluses in the lottery, we sent back the lottery money as surplus local aid.
Yeah, that's by statute, right?
Actually, no, we can change that around, actually.
Oh. See, this is why we have
That
tacky talks, because we get the real story.
that is the real story, folks. I know it had been elected 10 years, but remember, I've been doing this for 26.
Yeah.
In Beacon Hill policy and government. So we've adjusted the local aid numbers before. People forget the '03 recession. We actually cut local aid by 10% on the taxpayer side and hope that the lottery can fill in the other end. We've had surpluses in the late '90s as well. Again, I always keep pointing back to the late '90s. People remember we got the '98 to 2000 economic boom.
Mm-hmm.
Low unemployment, high salaries, it was crazed, right?
Yeah.
Also, all driven by capital gains. It was heavily driven by capital gains.
Yeah.
So, we gave back money those years as one-time overpayment or over receipt of lottery projection back to cities and towns. So I don't have an answer for you yet.
Okay.
I think as we get closer to final numbers and we close the books, which is in October, the comptroller certified the final cash in hand number in October. There may or may not be another supplemental budget for one-time local aid back to cities and towns. And when I say local aid, it's unrestricted, meaning, again, no strings attached.
Mm-hmm.
The city of Quincy can do whatever it wants with that money the state gives them. It's up to the city to decide.
Okay.
You're coming to me saying they can't spend this, can't spend on that. No, that's not how local aid works. It's as close as you're going to get to life and free money.
All right. So, yeah. So
we got stimulus checks, so we did get free money, some of us. So
it's true. Yeah. Okay. So that's, lobby your city councilors for that.
Yeah. If you guys listen to this and want some Fed money spent somewhere, or potentially maybe more local aid sometime this fall. I'll report back, of course, later in the year if that's happening. Definitely, you're right. Lobby your city council, lobby your mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Let the mayor know, hey, this money. Why'd you look at putting money in these places? I get lobbied all the time about where to put money. So
I'm sure that's true. How is we haven't talked about the tea in a long time, Tacky. How's the tea holding up?
I'll be honest. I have not looked at the T numbers lately.
Okay.
I've been kind of like, as you could tell, working on a whole lot of other numbers, plus my own committee work. It's picking up, but it's not anecdotally. It's far from pre-pandemic.
Oh, sure.
I mean, there's still a lot of hesitation. Some people wear masks. Some people take their masks off when they get trained, which they really should be doing. Enforcement's impossible unless people toe the T, or they got to put a T person in every single car and just
It's not practical. Yeah.
It's not practical. The T has actually downsized employees over the years, not upsized it. Although I do have to say upper management T has grown far too big, which is a whole different political conversation about how they manage their upper management versus people that should be, doing the maintenance and day-to-day operation stuff. But that's a whole different podcast. But I mean, with the lack of tourism, again, I know we go back to a lot of people visiting Boston. That's a big part of T summer traffic beyond just business. And white collar workers in particular, there's still a lot of hybrid going on about going to Boston or not, whether you're going to do a remote hybrid combination. It has not been a mash dash to open offices in Boston.
No, it's obvious by the traffic on the highways. Yeah.
Traffic is picking up. It's slower than ever since, in fact, I think it's getting closer to pre-pandemic.
Yep.
I'm sure many viewers have seen that, but it isn't the volume could be. And I do think a big volume of traffic is hesitation in getting on the train.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think people are now driving to Boston more than ever, which is not good for the environment. But I think there's continues to be hesitation on the train. Again, enclosed small space, you're in there for up to 30 minutes. You don't know what's going on next to you. We have no vaccination passports, no vaccination identification, no vaccination, anything to know the person you're talking to has been vaccinated or not. And you're unvaccinated for whatever reason. That's your reason. You're going to put yourself at risk. And I'm telling you that very likely those people that are unvaccinated should be driving to work.
Mm-hmm.
Expect a portion of that group is doing that. So, and maybe also the lower traffic numbers early on this year has encouraged people to drive to work because they figure to get there faster.
Yeah, that's true too.
And as traffic kind of gets a little bit more normalized, and traffic case normalizing is bad on so many different levels. Maybe people get interested in riding the T again, but I would tell you there's still a degree of T hesitancy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right about that too. We did get word that something is coming back this year here in Quincy, the August Moon Festival.
Yeah, Quincy Human Resources is intending to put together a much trimmed down version of the August Moon Festival on August 15th. I have no idea how this is going to look because I'm not involved in the planning process.
Okay.
But I mean, just like July 4th weekend, I mean, a lot of neighborhoods put something together, even though for a short time period and, people weren't home.
Mm-hmm.
And go for it. So, I mean, I understand there's that impact. And I do expect throughout the summertime, people are still going to be spending as much time outside of the neighborhood, so to speak, post-pandemic, stir crazy for being home too long. But it's great to see, this Quincy Resources try to put some type of event together. Hopefully, let's see how this Delta virus works out. But as variant works out, maybe we're going to do a much more stronger, larger street festival like we've done in the past. But it's a new normal. We're going to try to baby step our way in on this event. I do understand Chowder Fest is on for September 11th in Hell's Neck. The hours aren't the same hours they've had in the past, I think. I have to look at the bulletin again, the Hell's Neck Bulletin, which, by the way, if you want to read my monthly newsletter, it's actually in the Hell's Neck Bulletin.
Oh, very good.
You can go to the Facebook page, to the Hell's Neck Community Council, and get a form and sign up to get the newsletter. It's not very expensive. It's like $25 or $30. Very, very, very affordable.
Yep.
Is it 25? I have to look at. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's affordable, folks.
And all the money goes right back into all the events they produce. So.
Absolutely, the money goes back in the printing cost of the bulletin as well as all the community programs in Hell's Neck.
Right.
People ask me about a newsletter. I do one. It's actually part of a bulletin. I know it says Dear Hell's Neck Resident because it's Hell's Neck Bulletin.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I share a lot of state news beyond to what you hear here in this podcast.
Oh, good to know. Okay.
So I mean, there's that event going on. I expect to see things like a neighbor dinner happening in Hell's Neck this fall. I expect maybe the city will put together a winter program as well. I know a lot of the DCR programs and summer fun obviously didn't quite happen. We're still looking for lifeguards.
Yes.
Go to the DCR website or Google DCR lifeguards. There's still lifeguard job openings.
Yeah, and the pay is very good with some bonuses too.
Yep, and they'll train you. They train you to be a lifeguard. So if you can swim, if you're a strong swimmer, definitely consider making some extra money this summer. But yeah, a lot of the DCR programs got postponed because of the current situation.
Yeah.
Just couldn't get that planning up in time. So yeah, I expect to see some more events moving into the fall period. Probably trimmed down, but
right.
Things will happen.
Yeah, I know the Food Truck Festival is coming back in the fall. Porch Fest is going to be held in September, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
The General's Bridge, of course, dedication in September. So there's some things happening for sure, yeah.
And if you're a little bit nervous, a lot of those events are easily socially distanced.
Yes.
And those events are outdoors.
That's right, yeah.
So you still have some hesitancy out there about attending events. And yeah, definitely wear your mask if you're hesitant. Very much encourage you if you have concerns, and continue to hand sanitize and all that. But, you're right. Some of those events are outdoor events. Plenty of ways you to keep your distance. And I always tell people we still live in a world we have to be very patient about everything.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, we got, events going off. My colleagues in Lowell are trying to put together the Southeast Asian Water Festival also.
Oh, okay.
A slowed down version. And I'm not sure about whether August Moon in Chinatown is going to happen. Not heard from the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association about the Chinatown events.
Yeah.
So, yeah, everyone stay tuned. There'll be some outdoor stuff coming.
Yeah.
In the late summer to the fall.
All righty. Reach out to you, Tacky.
Again, 617-722-2014, 617-722-2014. Punch a number. You get a staff person, leave a voicemail. We're still working remotely. We are tacky.chan at mahouse.gov, tackey.chan at mahouse.gov. Again, I'm getting a lot of testimony email right now. So again, I do sort through the people's various public policy issues versus constituent needs immediately. Emails, I do check that on the weekends more often now than ever. And then, I have my Facebook page, Tacky Chan, State Representative Tacky Chan. We post, where I've been as well as, useful information, and tackychan.org tackichin.org. We put some human service numbers in local areas so you can find people. Maybe we call my office. Maybe we'll find some phone numbers that can help you out there. People ask when we're going to open the State House. The constant question. Senate and House has a special committee they formed to review the building and how we can safely open the building. Again, people have never visited State House, do not realize we do not have an HAV heating cooling system. It is forced hot water with a little fan in my office that's connected to it. Air does not leave the building. It does not circulate properly. It is one big box.
Yeah. A brick box at that.
A brick box. So imagine, in your house, the window's closed and you turn off the HAV. That's basically the State House. I mean, you see vents, but they don't actually do anything. It's complicated. The building has been changed so many times in the hundreds of years has been around that they just leave stuff behind. And we don't have air filtration. Some people have been working in air filtration systems, and we have them in the House chamber. Last time I made a visit, it's like standing next to a jet engine.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, it's extraordinarily loud, and it blows everything everywhere. So, again, we don't know who's vaccinated, who's not, who comes in. It's a box. I closed the door of my office, and it's even more of a box.
Yeah.
But actually today, it's Wednesday, of the 7th. We actually go into a phone debate today, teleconference debate about House rules. The House rules is recommending maintaining emergency rules until October.
Wow. Okay.
Maybe that's a clue in that they hope to have a plan soon about a fall opening.
Sure. Okay.
In case you're wondering, I'm sick of, as much as I love seeing you like this, and actually would like to continue to do this as we move to reopening in this podcast form, but I am getting tired of all my other meetings in this type of format.
I'm sure that is true for you and many people. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Tacky. It's great to talk to you.
Good to talk to you, Joe, and I'll see you hopefully in a week or so. I'm not sure how the schedule is working right now, but we'll figure it out.